Super
BS.
Oh yeah, we're back and better than ever. I'm
Nice.
joined here by the lovable baby boy who
Brank, back from the dead, ready to break some bread, ready to get to some gaming with you boys.
and bake some bread and then eat that bread, right?
That's what we're all about here. Is this a baking show?
It's a baking show. Yeah, this is the official Is It Cake podcast.
Nice.
I like the Great Bake Off better if that would be the case.
The Great British Bake Off?
Yeah, because we could get their audience.
We could. And our theme song could be a parody of Taylor Swift's Shake It Off. And just called
Yes.
Shake It Off.
That's what everybody loves T Swift. So that's what we're doing is now parody songs.
We're really capitalizing on that Eras tour.
I'm surprised Weird Al hasn't really done one yet.
Yeah. I wonder if he has an agreement. Like you can't touch her music.
Maybe he would be worried about the Swifties.
We gotta get that guy on the show. Yeah, for real.
We'll get old Weird Al.
I'm also joined here by Gerald Glassford. Hey, Gerald, tell us about the mini podcast that you got going on right now.
Well, you and I, although I just said, you may be able to take another weekend off, but you and I have been doing a show for the most part, since 2016, since you and I, came out fresh out of the National University loins and just started wreaking havoc with a weekly show that we do called the Pop Culture Cosmos and the PC Multiverse. I have also Melinda Barkhouse Ross, TJ Johnson, a number of people that stop by as we cover the latest news and trends in pop culture each and every week, whether it's video games, movies, television, as far as anything that goes on. I still want to talk to Josh about next time I do. Please remind me, Josh, about Boba Fett, Star Wars Boba Fett action figure.
I heard something. Yeah.
Yes, the Holy Grail. It did get sold, and I want to go ahead and discuss that on the show next time we're at it. But yeah, get a chance to talk to us there at the Pop Culture Cosmos. Plus, also, I just started season 6 of Inside Sports Fantasy Football. Chris Sardieri, Joe Soro, and I, we go ahead and talk about what's going on as far as trying to give you the best tips inside sports fantasy football there for all your fantasy football needs. And then last but certainly not least, that right there, as far as the Lakers fast break, I'm going on 1,100 episodes plus of that, because that's more of a 3 to 7 day week thing, because that one covers the NBA and the Los Angeles Lakers. Yeah, pretty much all week long, all year long. It's on that one.
I remember when the Lakers played the Kings in the playoffs. What year was that? That was like
that's early 2000s.
Early 2000s, yeah. And I remember because I was a Kings fan, not just for hockey, for basketball, because my family lived in Sacramento. Anyways, the Lakers, Robert Horry shot that shot, and then for the next.
Well, thanks to Vlade, the former Laker, passing it out. Yeah, if you want to get your conspiracy theories about also as well the refs involved, one of them that was later suspended and thrown out of the league for his game fixing, and he talked about that as well as far as Donahue, yeah. And then Vlade Divac's the former Laker. Conspiracy theorists in Sacramento are just like big time on that one. So
yes, they're calling up Buffalo Wild Wings, waiting for the wing servers to make the call about whether or not they wanted the game to keep going.
Now it's about light the beam in Sacramento. So there you go.
Anyways, yeah, you gave me crap for years about that stuff. Still do today, my friends. Anyways, hey, I want to talk to you guys about let's visit what we've been playing this past week, all right, or the past couple weeks. It's been a while, my wife decided to have a baby, and it was,
why would she do that?
So selfish. I know.
Did she ask permission from you, or
she
was it the other way around?
She was like, she walked, just like, hey, we're having a baby, and deal with it. And
okay, there you go. That's the way to get it done. Kudos to her.
Does she
all
even
right,
care
well,
that it's a big gaming season right now? Or
I know. You know, we talked last week about our wives like beefing up our stats. You know, she's just that was like negative defense points right there. I felt it.
nice.
Oh, all right, Gerald. What have you been up to, man? You been playing anything good? Checking out some of those Game Pass offerings lately.
Well, I was just telling Brank that my Xbox Game Pass just ended, and I'm not waiting to renew it until December the 9th. Conveniently, Indiana Jones will be dropping around that time. What do you know?
Ooh, yeah.
Because unless something really hits me, although Dragon Age the Veilguard is kind of calling my name,
Mm.
I will say though that I did get. I was telling Brank I was testing out as far as the cloud, and I've
Mhm.
actually used for the past year. I've been using cloud. I've been trying to on my Xbox Series X not use any hard drive space. I had to use it for Modern Warfare 3. That's the only game I've ever had to since I've had it. Had to actually download uh, and then most of games I play off the cloud. And I've had, like I said, 90% of the games I've had no trouble. Absolutely fluid, absolutely great experience. The Doom games, the one that just came out, it was the one I played last week as far as the retrofit with enhanced levels and a new levels that as far as Doom 1 and 2. I had a blast with that. That was fine. That ran smooth like butter on the cloud for me. But getting to the Doom Eternal 2016, 2020 games, like Brank was saying, those still have issues. But the cloud experience for me on Xbox Live or Xbox Game Pass, I should say, has been mostly a big success for me. And I see it trending there in the future. But the thing is, will Xbox advertise it correctly?
Mm.
Because the fact you can now get an Amazon stick, put it on, or with smart TVs like Samsung, as they're putting it on more devices, the cloud, they're becoming more and more reliant. It's becoming more and more stable. It's not quite there yet, but for the most part, it can be for casual players a good experience. But the problem is Xbox just does not promote anything well. And if that is the future, that's great. You just got to let people know.
Yeah, the streaming's odd in the fact that like it all depends on the game, it seems like. So I've played some of like the lesser powerful like indie titles and they've worked just fine. But you know, I've gone and played a game like Forza Motorsport and it skips, you know, goes like is constantly buffering while I'm trying to play it. And so it's hard to sit there and, you know, watch it do that while I'm trying to play a game. So I haven't been completely sold on the cloud gaming yet, but I've got pretty high hopes that maybe one day they'll get it to where it needs to be.
Well, again, it's still a lot of it is based on where you are at logistically around the world, and also, of course, where what is your internet like? Like I recently, a couple months ago, I tried T-Mobile. I moved away from our local cable internet. And boy, that was a dumb move. And I went to T-Mobile working out the 5G, and that was a horrible experience. Just trying to stream one of my shows was bad enough. So I switched back to cable, and it's pretty strong out here in Vegas. So again, it's also based off the internet you have as well.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm out in Texas, so my internet's not so great out here. Brank, what have you been playing? I know you don't game anymore.
I don't game ever, man. I've never even touched a game.
You
Been-
lost that level on the Lion King on Sega Genesis. You're like, never again, and then you just
I won't ever even look at games, man. I'm not even like pretending that I'm looking at games. No, I've been playing a lot. I finished Neon White, like I 100% of that game. I don't know if you guys have played it. It's on Game Pass. I hope you can see me too and hear me because I am frozen. Okay, there we go. And that is the police coming to get me because they don't like Neon White. Okay,
you're wrong.
So if you hear that, sorry guys, the police are going to take me away for playing Neon White. No, 100% that. That's a great speedrunning game. Excellent addition to Game Pass. I finished a game called Thank Goodness You're Here, which I think we talked about in the podcast, but that was a while ago. It's like a very funny British slapstick comedy where you walk around and you literally slap people. That's the only action that you do. And you solve little problems. And it's just a very bizarre game. If you haven't seen it, you should go look at it. It takes about 2 hours to beat. It is just really weird. But finished that. That was pretty great. I finished Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which one of these days we'll have to do a deep dive into the story and go over. We'll do a spoilery cast.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I finished that. That was great. I finished Stellar Blade from the beginning of this year. I don't know if you guys remember when I talked about that. That is a great, great game. I really loved it. I will say the ending, they have like 3 boss fights at the very end that have an insane difficulty spike where you just like look at it and you're like, why did you guys do this? The rest of the game is so easy and so forgiving. And then instead of just allowing it to be easy, you're like, no, we're going to make the hardest boss fights ever. So I dropped the game down to like easy to finish the final boss fight because he was that hard. And then I picked up Black Myth Wukong and I got pretty far in that, or I'm not very far. I'm in the 2nd chapter. I don't know. I believe you have it as well, right, Janky Poo?
Yeah, I still haven't played it, man. This having the new baby is kind of putting a damper on my gaming these days.
Have you like touched it at all? Like, have you turned it on?
It's installed. It's installed, and it's in there calling my name. I sat down to try to play some games the other night, and the baby was like screaming in my ear. I was like, I can't enjoy it like this.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's really hard. Like, I would say in some ways, I think it's harder than Souls likes. You don't lose everything when you die, but I just do think it's incredibly difficult. And it's just kind of mind blowing that they made a game, where it's as hard as it is. And you can level up and stuff. There's some things you can do, but like a lot of games, the leveling up only helps so much. It's not like the traditional old school RPG leveling where when you level up, you're going to get more health and attack every time. You're going to use those skill points, kind of like a Souls game, to level up. But unlike a Souls game, you can't just put points into health. There's a set amount of health upgrades or attack upgrades on the skill tree that you can access. So I had some bosses that I was stuck on for a while. I will say it's gotten a lot better now, but it's very interesting. What was your question?
Oh, sorry. I was going to ask, is that to keep the game from being too easy for people, you think?
Probably. Yeah. I can't imagine anyone thinking it's too easy, but I'm sure there are people out there. I mean, I've read people say it's way easier than Souls games and such, and I feel like there's a little bit of jank to it. It's a really, really high production quality game from a Chinese gaming company, which we haven't really seen before, kind of similar to Stellar Blade. You don't see a lot of AAA console Korean single player games, right? You normally see them make MMOs or other types of games. But yeah, this is the first big budget Unreal 5. I think it might be the first Unreal 5 game I can remember playing that's like big budget on PS5, and it's really cool, but it is difficult. On the indie side, on my Steam Deck, I've been playing some SteamWorld Heist 2, which, or I should say, I played and beat that game. It's really phenomenal. If you've ever played the SteamWorld series, it's just a great series. They have the SteamWorld and SteamWorld Dig and SteamWorld Heist, now SteamWorld Heist 2, SteamWorld Quest, and they have a SteamWorld Build. And I would say outside of SteamWorld Build, they're all just really, really great. Fun indie games, very similar robot aesthetic, but the heist games are turn-based strategy, semi-RPGs, and the Dig games are, I guess, like Dig Dug style games where you collect money to level up and do all this other stuff. And then the Quest games are builder, like deck builders, where you build like attacks, and that's an RPG where you level up as well. So yeah, I've been, as you can tell, I've been gaming a lot. I've played a ton of things, and there's probably way more to even discuss, but we'll stop there. Yeah, it's I haven't gotten a ton of time into Black Myth Wukong, maybe like 5 hours. I haven't picked up Star Wars Outlaws. I know that's coming out, and I haven't picked up Visions of Mana when we're recording that came out too. But I might get to those. It's tricky because September has a lot of good games, so I'm not like really too worried about like buying a bunch of stuff today, because like September, I know like the first week I'll be playing Astrobot. I love me a platformer, and that one looks great. I think we may have already asked you ad nauseum because we're so sick of hearing about it. But what have you been playing?
Honestly, man, I've just been on playing burp and feed and babysit the baby. So
nothing, not just not.
No, that's a sim game, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, it's a life simulator.
Keep them alive, right?
Like Inzoi that was announced at Gamescom.
Oh. Inzoi, that's the crazy super high def Korean Sims competitor, if you will.
I saw that. I
Get
don't know.
married, yes.
The characters look so realistic too. That's crazy. Some of the photos I've seen.
I do want to say though, before we head to our next subject, the highs and lows. We've seen some of the highest of highs and lowest of lows when it concerns success in the video game industry in the past 10 days, because Black Myth Wukong, the company behind them, Game Science, was proud to report that they reached 10 million in sales within the first 3 days, which is
isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
It's
that's
almost all in China, but it's
yes.
insane, right? Like
It's like well over 85% in China as far
Yeah.
as the sales is concerned. But hey, it is what it is. I know it's being sold there at a lower rate than what it is here in America and also in Europe as well. But still, they do need to be commended on it. Their way that they promoted things to streamers and content creators, I'm not exactly in love with. But hey,
yeah,
no one can
that was
argue.
funny. Yeah.
No one can argue with their success. But on the other hand, Sony, which is achieving a lot of success there, is not achieving it with Concord.
I was hoping you were going to bring that up. Yeah, it is
the highs and the lows.
Yeah, Tale Two Cities, man. It is a 700 as the highest player count for their big, first live service venture. I mean, they really screwed the pooch on this one. And it's funny because, I'm hearing a lot of people are like, oh, happy it's dead. But at the same time, there's people like, why are people happy it's dead? And, I'm kind of more in the camp of like, I am kind of glad it didn't succeed, right? Like, I don't want to see Sony go the path of making all live service games. And also, I think like if this would have succeeded, I think I would have lost some faith in humanity because there's so many good free to play shooters that have come and died. And to see like some Sony mediocre Overwatch clone. Now, I haven't played it, so somebody could say like, wow, it's way better than every shooter ever. But from what I've read and heard, the shooting is good, but it's like pretty much an Overwatch clone. If that would have come and been the hill that everyone died on, it's like, this is the best ever, it would have just kept me in the camp of like, we live in a very like, almost like Sony fanboy world where it's like they could kind of release trash. So it's kind of, this kind of renews my faith in that, like, hey, this is like something very, crazy that's, going on and whatnot. So, and like they're normal.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was about to say, it's just, this is the way this should have gone. Any other way would have felt very just crazy.
Well, we talked about Concord. I think I talked about it with both of you guys after the summer gaming showcase they had. And I was thinking to myself, like, what market research did they do on this to say like, oh, hey, people want a game like this? Because I mean, it seems like they dumped a bunch of money into making this thing, and it just
8 years too.
Yeah,
8 years to make it. It's crazy. They started it when Overwatch came out. Isn't that insane? And then they're like, hey, we'll just put more and more and more time into this.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, it probably is a bummer for Sony, but also, hopefully it's a lesson learned on making things that people actually want to play.
It's a bummer for the developers too. I'm not like rawing like, man, a lot of people are probably going to lose their jobs, sadly, because of this. But I will say it does feel good to know like, hey, they took the worst path through all of this. They showed the PlayStation that we're living with right now feels very much like the PlayStation from PS3, the PS3 launch cycle, the one where it's like, hey, we do what we want. You guys buy our products. That's how this world works. You like us, like I saw a band, My Chemical Romance, a long time ago. They put on a phenomenal show.
Who's that? What are their hits? I don't know
their
any
hits.
songs.
Anyways,
band, yeah.
I saw them for their Black Parade tour, and one of the things that I hated, and I still think about it to this day, is like their crowd work was saying how much we loved them. Right? It's like, you love us, you effing love us. I hate it when there's so much pride on display, even if it's kind of true. I just don't like it. And I feel like the Sony that we are currently dealing with, maybe it's going to change since Jim Ryan just left. But it is a very like Sony prideful studio where it's like, hey, this is normally free from everyone else. We're charging $40. Hey, there's what?
That's their MO though. They've always done that. It seems like.
Well, yeah, but this is like very tone deaf, right? Like when what was that Destruction All-Stars? When Destruction All-Stars came out with, which probably actually had a bigger player base than this. When that came out, they were originally going to charge $70 for it. They realized no one was buying it. So they released it for free, right? It's free to play on PS Plus. That's what should have happened with this. This is the 37th best-selling game on the PlayStation Store right now. Like, this is not a big seller. So, yeah, I think we're living in an age where sometimes people need to be put in their place. It just stinks for all the people that work super hard on this because they didn't get to make those calls.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I want to circle back to something Gerald was talking about, the Black Myth Wukong, I guess, streamer rollout. So something that they released, what was it, guidelines for streamers that said like you can't talk about like COVID and a couple other big social
feminist, yes,
yeah. Okay, so I want to get Brank lived in China for a long time, so I want to get his thoughts on this. And then Gerald, I want to get your thoughts on this as someone that like ran a gaming store, and knows like how to market things to people. Brank, let's start with you, man. Like what having lived in China, like what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, yeah, this is a weird one because I'm definitely in the minority. I think what they did wasn't wrong. They said don't do this stuff, and people here get to do what they want to do. Right? Like, they have no power over those people. That's what they didn't want people to do. So just saying it means nothing. I think a lot of people kind of don't understand that China is essentially 90s America, right? Like, homosexuality is not really something that's talked about openly very often there. When I was last there in, last October, as far as I know, like, transgender discussions, LGBTQIA things, that's not really something that happens there. Drug use is still high prison, right? Like, you're going to go to prison for smoking pot or doing any of those other things or bringing drugs into the country. So with that being said, like, this controversy about like them destroying free speech and all, like, this is like the end of whatever. This is a video game company that said, don't talk about this stuff. Now, I don't know if people had to sign stuff to play the game. Like, if that's what people had to do, then if I were those people, I wouldn't have signed the stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it's a $60 game. It's not.
They said if you were going to take the code, that was the email that was sent and the correspondence.
Yeah, don't take the code.
Taking the code, you comply with their terms.
Yeah, I would just say then, like, for me, the controversy isn't
exist. We're talking about.
Yeah, preview copies. Yeah, this is all preview copies to content creators. This was by their PR. It was the Game Science PR that was responsible for sending this out. And it outlines, you can't do this, can't say this, do this.
Yeah.
Had they not said anything
in
regards to COVID or feminism or anything else that people took offense with in this PR requirements,
it probably wouldn't have been a problem.
Wouldn't have been a problem because the game doesn't really even touch on those issues. And I don't think any content creators would have actually put anything in there or any notice. Now, I know that the characters, in Black Myth Wukong are predominantly male, but it just, I don't think anybody would have noticed had the PR not gone without it. But now that you touched on it, of course, people are going to go ahead and put a microscope on it. And while it's okay for the 80 to 85% of people in China or in the Asian markets that are buying this game, I still think this game has been solidly reviewed. According, like you said, you got it. It looks like it's for a game that doesn't say it's a Souls-like game, which some are, they're arguing over whether or not it's a Souls-like game or not. It has its roots in Dark Souls from what I'm seeing and the footage I've seen. It looks like it's a pretty good time. It's a pretty fun game. Let it be that. Just when you go ahead and you say that stuff in advance, that just brings more negative attention to it than it needed to get.
I guess for me, my thought is, because I saw the stink about it too. And I think it was dumb that they said that to those people. But all I thought is like, and I think it's fair the way people responded, right? Where like half of the people who got the game, who paid for it, who streamed it on Twitch were like feminist propaganda, right? Like, they talked about all the stuff that they weren't allowed to talk about. I think that's totally fair, right? Like, in the titles. And I thought that was funny. I thought it was good taste, right? To like do a silly joke, make fun of them. I just think like, boy, if they're going to tell you like, these are the rules, you just don't take the thing, right? Like, there's plenty of times our government's done that with streamers and content creators and paid the money to say stuff. And it's like, hey, if you take the money, you say the stuff, right? Like, it's a job.
Well, the content creators who didn't take the code and talked about it immediately on the air, probably got about near the same amount of views as they would have streaming the game.
Yeah. So I just, for me, like, I get it. Like, I get that it's like, it was dumb of them, right? But it also is like, it's just, I'm sure someone in China has seen a lot of American Twitch stuff and probably doesn't like it very much and was like, hey, we want these people to play it, but we know what they talk about on their streams.
Don't
and
spend your time on Twitch. That's a bad place to go. I know we're on there right now, but
I'm just saying though, like, that's, well, and it's also, I mean, we haven't even discussed this because we haven't talked about gaming news for forever.
Have you seen your Twitch dashboard lately?
Twitch is like not doing super hot from what I've gathered from like a lot of people. Amazon's looking at him as like a loss leader. But like I said, my biggest thought is this, like, yeah, it was dumb, but it's like I remember when I had a friend who taught English out here, right, in America, and some of the students of this person who was English teacher were from China, right? And they often would post about how like sexist and racist and terrible these people from China were, right? It's a homogenized culture that does not have many other types of groups of people. Like, it's not fair to judge them based on like a melting pot culture, right? Like, it's not the same place, right? Like, I don't go to the Middle East and judge them for the clothes they wear or the culture that they have, right? Like, that's just not how you do stuff. And if they came here, I wouldn't judge them for wearing the clothes that they have, the culture that they have, right? Now, if people live here for 40 years or 30 years or 20 years, I think that's a lot more fair. But my whole big thing that I just get so frustrated by when I see this is just this idea of like, hey, this group is like trying to censor free speech. Dudes, if you haven't seen it, free speech is not free in a lot of places in the world right now, and it hasn't been free for a long time. The idea that it's not free in China, there's not free speech in China, right? Like, you can't just say whatever you want. So the idea that we're getting so angry at them over this, it's like, they can't say anything about their own government there, right? Like, I mean, you're talking about like this whole thing about like feminism propaganda and stuff like this into the world. Those people will go to prison if they actually do big things. I mean, you can look at huge billionaires who disappear, right? That still happens. And like, I don't think China's this big, scary place. I live there and I said stuff. If you're not a big famous person, it doesn't matter. But I'm just saying, like, for me, all of that stuff was overblown, right? It's kind of like a lot of the Concord stuff. Like, people really want to talk about the heroes because they're all ugly. And it's like, I sometimes think that stuff's overblown too, right? Like, yeah, it's dumb. It's like weird to uglify people. Like, I don't know if you saw like the controversy around
Star Wars Outlaws.
Outlaws. Yeah, like the model that they hired for that game, and then the character model they created. It's so funny coming from the 90s where like every character model was like an ultra sexualized person, and now it's like people who on the internet sexualize themselves maybe are being not unsexualized, if you will, right? Like, if you search the person who plays Cave S, it's like normally semi-risque photos pop up on just regular Google, right? Because of the clothes they choose to wear. And then you look at Cave S, the character model, and it's like
Star Wars soccer mom. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's not even that, man. The hair is so funny. The hair for that. So anyways, I think like stuff like that, getting like angry about that and controversial about that is dumb too, right? Like, my big thought about all this stuff is like, games are crazy hard to make. They made the game. We didn't. We get to talk about it and do whatever we want. If they want us to follow their rules, so what? If we buy the game, which, yeah, games aren't cheap or free, but like, if you really don't want to not talk about Black Myth Wukong, pay $60. Or if you don't want to follow their rules, right? And you're like, I don't want to sign this, just pay the $60. Then if you're like, well, I don't support them because they said, don't pay the $60 and don't play it. Like, this is like a non-life or death thing. What? So sorry. For me, this stuff always gets so crazy. Because it's like, you see issues when you're like, why are there issues on both of these things, right? Like, Concord's issue isn't ugly characters. Like, yeah, that might be a reason why like 3 people don't play it. Their main issue is they released a hero shooter for $40 8 years after the popular one came out. Like, it's like ridiculous. It's like, you'd have to be the best game ever with the biggest marketing, and you'd have to have all the good looking characters and 1 million people playing it, and have, whatever, I don't even know who the famous streamers are anymore, Skill Up playing your game every day, right? For a year.
I think when it comes down to it, I'll just touch on this real quick. I think it should put a bigger light with the sales records is the untapped market of the Chinese and India marketplaces. Both of them. They're the two most populous countries on the entire planet. Yet, in many ways, Josh and I, back in the early days of the Cosmos, we were talking about how many of these Hollywood movies were doing so well in China. But ever since the COVID restrictions by the Chinese government or just frowning on it or whatever, Hollywood movies have not been able to gain a foothold since then. Alien Romulus is actually, I went to you guys, which movie has done the best in China this year? You would say Inside Out 2 or Deadpool Wolverine. No. It's actually Alien Romulus, and it's not even close. And it hasn't even done $100 million in China as of yet, which is, again, still just a drop in the bucket. But India, for where they have this, the rules and regulations on it has to be manufactured in India before they'll go ahead and sell it. Otherwise, you have to really, pay an exorbitant amount of fees to actually bring the products in. So for PlayStation, Xbox, it's always been a barrier of entry there. So to me, it just shows that when you find a product that resonates with an audience in China and potentially in India, you could be adding quite a bit of sum of money for that. And again, Game Science, for all the stuff that you did with PR, wish you would have thought that out differently, but you cannot escape the success that they're having. And the fact that it is actually looking, and Metacritic wise, which is what I go off of, it's really been a pretty solidly reviewed game.
Yeah, I mean, it's really well made and fun. I would say it's slightly jankier than Stellar Blade, and I from the videos I've seen on the PC, high-end PCs, it looks better than Stellar Blade. On my PlayStation 5, I think Stellar Blade's a way better looking game. But I also think there might have been because Sony helped publish Stellar Blade, so I think there was more money behind it. But to me, they're very similar ideas, right? They both came from Asia, doing a single player focused game, which is stuff we haven't seen. And like you mentioned, tapping into the Chinese market, this is something brand new, it feels right? Also, video game consoles were illegal there for a very long time, right? And most of the sales are coming from PC anyways, because that's how most people play games there. But this requires an incredibly expensive PC. So it is almost insane
and
how many people
buy. PlayStation 5s are going off, right now, selling off the chain in China because of it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because the PCs would probably cost about $1,200 and I'm assuming a PS5 in China is probably $600, $500 to buy.
This game is based off of Chinese mythology. Is that not correct?
Kind of. It's based off of Monkey, Journey to the West, this very famous story about monkeys kind of visit to Buddha. I can't remember. I've learned
that's
about
why
it
it's
a lot.
resonating so well in China.
Monkey King, right? There's a lot of
the Monkey King. The monkey is the Monkey King. Yeah, but it's a very interesting thing, and it's. Yeah, it was funny. My wife teaches Chinese, and one of her students is a nerdy gamer person. And he mentioned how it was funny that this game is getting a pass because it's about Buddhism. But if you did the same thing with say Christianity here, it would not go over very well. I also don't think you would ever see it get made. But it was a funny thing, right? Because it is very Buddhist heavy. Because that's what the monkey fable story is, right? But yeah, I was just I thought that was a very interesting thing when he mentioned it. He's I don't think he's a Christian dude or anything. It's just a funny thing. He was yeah, they wouldn't make this here about a religion like this. It only works in China with Buddhism and because it is Buddhism and not Christianity, right? So I thought that was interesting. Yeah, the game itself though is great. I would say, if you're somebody who's on the fence about it and you want to try it, if I think it's 60, it's not even 70. $60 isn't too bad for you. My guess from, I haven't got to play the other two big ones that came out this week, but my guess is from reading all the reviews, this is the best of the Visions of Mana, Star Wars Outlaws, Black Myth Wukong, right? Which are kind of the trio of games that came out the last week and a half.
It is rated higher than those two on Metacritic.
Yeah, I will be honest and say I am one of the people who's probably the most disappointed in the reviews for Star Wars Outlaws, because I was really excited for that game. I think I even I created a list of every game that I was for sure going to buy this year. And I was pretty positive it was on that list of I'm definitely getting it no matter what. And then the reviews started coming out. They're like, oh, you only get one gun and you have 4 stealth segments that if you get caught, the game
Who
like
made this game
stops.
again?
Ubisoft, but it's
I
the
think
one
you
that
answered your own question on that.
yeah. I like Ubisoft games. I was a big Assassin's Creed
I'm
Odyssey
kidding.
fan.
But Josh has been on the Cosmos and spoke at length in regards to open world Ubisoft games. Although it looks
all
like
the same,
that they
yeah.
tried to take out a lot of the fluff, which you were so very unhappy about doing because you're OCD, Josh.
Yeah.
And took that out of and put it, as far as what creating Outlaws.
Yeah, well, that was kind of my big concern there too, is that like Assassin's Creed has they've nailed the formula, even though the maps are too big. But anytime they ventured outside of the Assassin's Creed genre and made like a big open game like Avatar, it was talked about for like a week and then nobody played it anymore. You can go to Walmart and find Avatar Frontiers of Pandora for like $20, if not less than that.
Yeah, I mean it's like such a bummer. I loved especially Ubisoft after their resurgence in like what was that? Probably 2017 when they released Origins. Like the Origins, Super Mario, what was it? Mario Cross Rabbids on Switch was that year. The next year they released Odyssey, which is probably my favorite Assassin's Creed game, like surpassing
Was that also
2.
the year of the Division?
I want to say Division was 2018 as well. It could have been even earlier. Could have been 2016 though. Because I do remember playing that. This is the team that made the Division. Division's 2015. I think Division 2 is 2019. I was kind of like
it's so old.
Yeah, 2019 was kind of, or 2019, 2020. I would say 2020 was the last big Ubisoft year. That was the Assassin's Creed Valhalla and then Mortals Phoenix Rising year.
Oh,
After that, it has been just like watching mismanagement the game, right? Like you're watching what should be big titles coming out all the time, and instead they're releasing, I don't know, that game where you like do a bunch of different extreme sports and race against each other, and they have like a roller ball game they released that they didn't really promote.
Yeah, that's the one, right?
Fusion Frenzy. No, I mean it's sad. Honestly, like seeing current Ubisoft, especially knowing that they are still one of the biggest publishers around. They have so many workers and they're probably going to have to lay off tons of them with how bad it's been recently. It's just like, it's like watching a train wreck. I'm really, really hoping Assassin's Creed Shadows, the Assassin's Creed we asked for 10 years ago, ends up being good, right? Because this is like, I feel like in some ways, I feel like it's like Ubisoft's last attempt, because I don't even know what they have after this besides probably another Far Cry in the future or whatever, right? But I feel like the days of all their exciting stuff's kind of done.
But the thing is, that's the second time you've said that in about 20 minutes. Man, they put so many years into it, how many tens and hundreds of millions of dollars into it, didn't come out as successful as they wanted to, and now a lot of people are going to be out of their jobs because of it. Because Outlaws, looks like it's average rated, probably going to get average results out of it, which is going to be
game in a couple of weeks.
Exactly. So it's going to be underwhelming to Ubisoft. It's going to be a shame because a lot of people are going to be out of work, and that the video game industry is not what it once was, because there is no AA games anymore. It's either an indie game or a game with a very low budget or a $200 to $300 million game that you better make your money on it or out the door you go.
Yeah.
So, all right, I gotta talk about this. Also, I forgot to tell you the name of the podcast when we first started recording this. Like you guys don't know, this is
they
Super
know
BS Gamescast, a podcast about video games mostly. And I'm your revered or reviled host, Josh the Great, Jankerson the Third. And we did it. We've been talking about it for years. We made jokes and then we got serious about it, and now it's happening. Argonaut Games is coming back with a remaster of Croc, and we've just been celebrating all week.
Goat Simulator is getting a refresh as well.
Gerald, right now is not the time for Goat Simulator, okay? It is the Croc time. This has been the time we've been waiting for. At first, I was wondering where you were going with this, because I was like, we did it. What did we do? And then I remembered
because
it is the day the Lord has made,
I forgot how much Croc meant to you guys. So I apologize.
Croc is the most important PlayStation 1 title. Everyone knows that. They think Croc, Final Fantasy VII, Metal Gear Solid, all the others, but there's normally Croc right at the top.
Croc's at the top. Yeah, we're full of Croc and we love Croc. You know,
Well, you had me on Fusion Frenzy with my old days with the old Xbox.
Yeah. If they put Croc in Fusion Frenzy, then there'd just be no.
Yeah.
You couldn't make another game.
You couldn't make a better game. Are there Gobos in Fusion Frenzy? Because if there's not Gobos and Legends of Gobos, then I don't even want to play Fusion Frenzy anymore. I need those Legends of Gobos.
Well, when you remember, it was the pack-in for the OG Xbox along with Halo, and when you took it out, Halo, Fusion Frenzy. Which one should I play first?
Fusion Frenzy, of course.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, most people played Halo, and then they didn't realize how great Fusion Frenzy was for until they turned it on, 4 months later.
I don't think I own Fusion Frenzy. I don't think it came with my Xbox. I got an OG Xbox pretty early on, so I had to buy Halo for it as well.
Okay, yeah. So I had to buy Halo, and I bought Fusion Frenzy when it hit the silver platinum edition or whatever.
Only Gerald got the cool Xbox that came with 2 games.
Lucky. All right, so I just want to ask, you guys gonna play Croc? I mean, I'm excited. I'm gonna play it. Gerald, what about you?
You dare say no, Gerald.
I will not dare say no. I will give it a shot since it is such a revered game on this podcast.
It's incredible. You will not regret it.
I just hope they fix those tank controls. That was the most irritating part about that game was the tank controls. We had to switch the camera around. I know, Brian, that's a favorite game of yours, is the camera manipulation, but I really hope they fix that in this remaster.
I'm just trying to look it up now, though. Croc 2, I'm looking at it on eBay. Somebody's trying to sell a graded one for $3,400, I think.
Wow. It's worth it. Gerald, you got to buy it.
This is the day of Croc Resurrection.
Hey, you could get Croc 2 Black Label though for incomplete in box for $20 on eBay though.
I'll trade it for my Mass Effect standee out there.
Oh, there you go.
I have a copy of Legend of the Gobos on Sega Saturn. So
that's so funny that I always forget they have those games on, because Sega Saturn's like that forgotten console where you're like,
but the games are so expensive.
Oh yeah, I think I have a Sega Saturn and I have 2 games. One is Dragoon Force, which is like one of the rarest games. And I got it from some guy at an office. Maybe it's Dragoon Force, Sega Saturn. Dragon Force. Sorry, not Dragoon Force. Dragon Force. And it's like this cool strategy game. And then I had that Die Hard trilogy game. If you remember, that was in the arcades. That was super fun. But I only have those 2 games.
It's crazy because I was talking to Doug at Retro City Games, and he was saying that the Sega Saturn is the most expensive. It has one of the fewest catalog of games, but it's one of the most expensive to collect, and that has always been absolutely insane.
And also, I think in good condition, because that case for it, if you remember, because I had a Saturn one time, terrible. Those they're thin, they would break all the time. They crack all the time. So if you can find the games in good condition, the game case is in good condition.
Game case are hard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. So last thing I want to hit with new stuff is Indiana Jones and the what's it called? The Golden Circle, I think the game is called. A lot of people are Xbox fanboys and PlayStation fanboys alike are sitting there going, why are they giving us so Xbox people are like, why are you letting PlayStation players play this game? And Xbox or PlayStation people are like, we don't need your charity, Phil Spencer.
We talked about this last week. You wanted to bring it up again? Did somebody see it?
Did we? No, I was just reading.
We talked about this at the end of last week.
I don't remember that.
That and the Acolyte.
That and the Acolyte. Those are our favorite things. We discussed how with Indiana Jones and the Great Circle coming to PlayStation, what's the use of Xbox, right? That was a discussion that we had at the very end, because that's how we got into cloud streaming, right? What is Xbox's future? But no, it's still interesting. I know a bunch of people had demos of it, I want to say earlier this week, or maybe it was late last week, and they saw it and they said it was pretty good. The best write-up I've seen so far was someone equating it to Chronicles of Riddick, which I loved, that first-person shooter adventure game. Yeah, that was such a fun game back in the day. I
That
loved
was
it.
amazing. I don't know why they
OG
stopped.
Xbox.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had that on OG
Always
Xbox as
comes
well.
back to OG Xbox.
I know,
It's
what a
so
dumb
good. Yeah, I guess they had a 360 re-release that I never got. I should have picked it
Yeah,
up.
had Butcher's
Butcher's
Bay
Bay.
was double packaged into. Not as great as, was the first one.
It was Chronicles of Riddick: Escape from Butcher Bay.
There's a second one that was packaged into it though.
There's some deals. There was some
There's DLC, I think. I don't think there's a
maybe that was
second.
it.
There's
Yeah.
never a second release. But I believe if my memory serves, the group that made Chronicles of Riddick, some of those people spun off, and that's how we have Machine Games, which is like the people made Indiana Jones. I
makes
believe
sense.
that's because they were the
Assault on Dark Athena is what you're asking for. That's the one that came out on
yes.
360.
Oh yes, yeah.
But is that a sequel? Actually, I always thought it was just like a DLC, like a
I
kind
think
of
it's a
greatest hits.
remastered with the DLC. I think it's
Okay.
I think it's pretty much the same thing.
Yes, they call it
it's not-
expanded remake. That's exactly it. You're right.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that was-
anyways, I mean, what do you think is what is the point of not like having this property though, not allowing people all over, not being able to make money off of it? Like, why that? I don't understand the like exclusivity thing in 2024.
You
At
mean
this point, well,
of like having Indiana Jones on both consoles? Are you asking why people are upset or
like just in general though? I mean, the Indiana Jones just like kind of brought that to the forefront. Like, why do we have exclusivity in 2024 when you have these companies like even Square had come out and said like, hey, this kind of like killed our sales. So why do these developers in a I don't know, an industry that's kind of failing, like why would they risk sales to go console exclusive these
You can
days?
handle it first, Gerald, but I definitely have a lot of thoughts. I mean, exclusivity.
I'll just say I've come around to it in recent years, understanding the fact that $200-300 million now for a lot of these high-end AAA games, and we just talked about it. I just talked about it, how if it doesn't succeed, you know, companies are gone, development studios are wiped out, people are laid off. So why not give your game the best avenue for success? And in the case of Machine Games, that spent $200 million plus on this game, you're going to have to go ahead and sell on PlayStation for $70 a pop. Hey, it's 6 months delayed release. If somebody really wants to play it, tell them to get an Xbox, tell them to go ahead or get a Samsung TV or a stick, an Amazon stick, light up Xbox Game Pass and play it for whatever the price of the membership is right there. Do that if you really are upset about it. But for Xbox fanboys, which Josh and I are, I've come to grips on that as well. It's just a realization of where you were at in the industry. And I think that it's been a very clunky way to do it, but Phil Spencer, I think they're trying to see the future of the way the business is going. PlayStation is going to have to do it too, as far as, and they're trying, PlayStation with their PC releases is dipping their toe in the water, and they're going to have to go more multi-platform as well. The one that the last holdout will be Nintendo, because Nintendo still has that, I don't the treasure chest back there full of gold that they've got from all the years of Zelda and Mario, so they don't have to do multi-platform. But if Xbox and PlayStation wants to tap into that market as well, when Switch 2 comes out, they can do that as well. I just think it's something in the case of Xbox. You spent $70 billion on Activision. You spent close to $10 billion, on Bethesda. Sorry, Xbox alone, sales alone is not going to cut it anymore. You're just going to have to go ahead and bite the bullet if you want these top of the line games to keep on coming. And I'm hopeful, because if Xbox does see a window of success for their games, the realization that we could be getting an Xbox handheld that has a full library of Steam along with your Game Pass, that could give you an instant wealth of opportunity as far as gaming is concerned.
Yeah, I agree with both of your sentiments, but I understand why exclusivity still exists. It exists because even though the game's expensive to make, right? Even though Indiana Jones is so expensive, you need to sell the boxes. You want to get the 30% from every other publisher that sells on your store. You want every single person in your ecosystem, because that's 30% on every game, right? Like Microsoft selling on on PlayStation, Call of Duty and stuff, they're still going to make a ton of money. But guess what? Sony still gets 30%. That's the way it works. They'll just always get 30%. So I think, yeah, while I agree with what both of you are saying, I think gaming is in a place where like they can't just sell 2 to 5 million copies of games anymore to break even, especially with the amount of time they're spending on it, the salaries. They have to sell 10 million, and you're just really not going to get everybody. If you're on one platform, you're not just going to get 10 million in sales nowadays. You're going to need to be on all three. But I think the tricky part for Microsoft is if they can't convince people why to buy their boxes, right? And maybe they don't care. Maybe the way they look at it is maybe their Microsoft store, they get 30% off that. But the truth is Steam has a lock and on all the PC gaming, right? Like everybody goes through Steam to the point where like you hear people still complain this many years later about Epic Game Store. And they just don't want to have to do that. Even though Epic Game Store for the developers is the best paying one, all the people don't want to use a different downloader. I'm the same way. I have a Steam Deck. It sucks.
I go there every time I get free games.
Yeah, I know. Epic Games. But I don't totally understand the stink about it other than like I don't PC games. So like for me, it's kind of useless without like getting it on Steam so I can play on deck. But for this, like I understand exclusivity, right? Like Indiana Jones, like say it did convince someone to buy an Xbox, that's now someone that they won't get, right? I get why people are upset because like they did spend $500 on the main reason why you buy most consoles is for the exclusive games, right? Because PlayStation's going to have all the other games. The PC is going to have the ability to do both your productivity as well as games, right? That being said, I'm kind of more like you. I'm not upset. I think it's a great thing for PlayStation gamers. I think overall it's a good thing for gaming as a whole. But for Microsoft and the future of Xbox being a console that I have under my TV, I think it's bad. I think this is like the beginning of the end for Xbox as a console because the truth is, and I said this exact same thing last week and I stand by it, when the next generation comes around, which Xbox is supposed to kick off first, if they are going to be on PlayStation with every single game, why am I buying an Xbox?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're gonna go that route with every single game. I just like with this.
Avowed still has yet to be announced for PS5.
But the rumor is though, like Gears of War, which is one of their biggest standbys, is coming to PlayStation. Like that's
if Halo goes to PlayStation, that's going to be the one that will get everybody. Forza a little bit, Gears of War, E-Day. You're right, it would get, but Halo, if that actually comes to
and I see it happening. I see it. I mean, like we talked about last week, I see God of War at some point coming to Xbox. I don't think it's going to be tomorrow. I think they're going to do what they like to do on PC, which is
if
like
that handheld comes out and it's Steam accessible, you do have God of War already in your hand.
Yeah, on your Xbox. Yeah.
Well, and this has always been Microsoft's goal, though. I think is to kind of phase the consoles out at some point. I mean, they've been very forward about that.
I'm still an old man who like I would rather own a couple things in life. Like I love Game Pass, like I'm not against it, but I don't mind buying a game every now and then, right? Like I like being excited to buy a game, right? Like I don't enjoy the world that we got into. Like in some ways it's great because I pay a lot less for everything entertainment wise when it comes like I'm not buying DVDs, I don't buy Blu-rays, I don't buy many games, right? But it does feel like the final death knell to be like, oh, okay, they're phasing out consoles in general. So I'm at the mercy of whatever they want on their store when they have it. Because if it's like it is now, like I don't buy movies anymore. Like it's like even if I want to watch it, it's just like, well, it's not on a streaming service that I have. I'm not watching that. We'll watch someone else, right? Like we're not gonna do that. It's like I own probably 10 digital movies that I bought for $5 each. I have a small library. Probably buy a few more when they're $5. But like overall, we've already crossed the bucket of like physical is dead, right?
Don't say it. Don't say it.
It is. I bought I'm one of those. I'm a weirdo now. I bought a Sea of Stars edition for Switch just because like I wanted to support a game studio because I just was like, hey, I kind of miss this. I spend a lot less on gaming nowadays, so I can spend $40 or whatever on Sea of Stars, right? But it is going to be sad when I'm no longer buying games and I'm being told by people what I'm playing, right? Like when it's like, hey, here's your services. You can pay for whichever ones you want. You're not going to, you can buy the game if you want, but that's not how we're all fed the games. And I do think if Microsoft phases out consoles, we're not that far away from that, right? Like we're not far away from like the Netflix of gaming. And I think in some ways I'll be sad, right? Like just the same way I am that like I used to go to Best Buy and pick up stuff. Like we started this. I don't even think we'll have time to talk about today because we got to this so late. But like we talked about our favorite gaming moments and memories, right? And Gerald mentioned like he owned a gaming store, right? And I think back to every Tuesday going to Best Buy and buying like a new CD, or when a Mass Effect and Assassin's Creed came out, I think it was like the same week.
2007.
Yeah, I bought both of those games at a Best Buy, and I was so excited, right? It was an excited that I'm not when I download stuff on Game Pass, right? Like I still enjoy those games. I'm still excited that I don't have to pay money for it. I still think Game Pass is the best value in gaming, but there is something that we are missing. And I think if we get rid of the console and it's just like, hey, you're going to get streaming stuff the way we want to serve it to you, I will be a little bit sad. And I think we're moving there really, really quick. And I think these decisions are making it faster.
Yeah. Yeah. And it'll be one of those, like, you can never go home again moments, right? Like you'll never be able to feel that again because it's gone.
And I think the worst thing for me, because like I love Xbox, as we've talked about. Like I'm a pretty big Xbox fanboy, as you can tell. I'm PlayStation's always my second console that I buy, right? Like normally I'll buy the Xbox whenever the generation comes out first. Sadly, like they do a lot of pro-consumer moves, but what I will say is because of their phenomenal wealth and because of their things, they kind of can dictate what happens next, right? So if they decide like people are not going to buy games anymore, they can make that's something they can do, right? Like they literally have the power, right? It's like Disney, right? Like how many properties they own. They get to decide the way we're fed entertainment. There's only a couple competitors now. And I just there's something that I miss about the days of like, especially the early 2000s when like indies were becoming a thing and you could still make games for low millions of dollars, right? Like things felt possible. And I do think Indiana Jones moving to PlayStation just goes to show like, hey, Xbox is not in this. It's the smartest move. I agree with you guys. I think it's the best move. And I think it's better for the people too. I just think there's not going to be a reason for an Xbox console. I think this next generation will be their last generation doing physical consoles. Outside of like maybe a small, cheaper box you can put under your TV for streaming, and maybe it can play some games weekly or something, like not powerfully,
It's definitely a double-edged sword.
Is Gerald
I was going to say, unless the handheld becomes a big hit.
So see, I would love that. If they do that, then all the things I've said, they don't go away, but I understand it, right? Like I'm never going to buy a physical game for Steam, right? And the days of me buying physical games for even my Switch outside of like for collector's items or art are gone, right? I choose digital every time because it's easier when I go on a trip and it's just nicer to have all the games there. So yeah, if Xbox goes handheld, then I understand that, right? Like then it's like, hey, you don't need to worry about the big console onto your TV. You can let Sony win if you want, right?
You can plug it in. I mean, you can do a Switch. You can put it in a docking
station. Yes, yeah. But I mean, like the mega powerful Series X, right? Like I feel like the Series X, the biggest blunder I've seen for it so far is it's supposed to be the most powerful console on the market, but because they have the lowest, what's that called, like share, market share, because they have the lowest market share, nobody ever takes advantage of it. It's more often that you see games that take advantage of Sony's PlayStation 5, right? Runs better there because they optimize there. So like, yeah, for me, I would very much like to see, I would like to see some exclusives, right? Because if we go the way of no exclusives, that was the long story around this. I just feel like we're going to get into a world where it's like, oh, okay, so we don't have Halo, like the world just playing on PlayStation. And it's like PlayStation's late to the party, man. Microsoft's going to make the calls. I really think so. Unless they decide they just don't want to do gaming, which is always their decision, I think they're going to be making the call permanently because they just have too much money.
Yeah, they do. It's true. I mean, look at who they're backed by. All right, so I think this is a good place for us to stop. We meant to get into our last round of gaming memories, but I don't think we're gonna have time to do that tonight. So we have to.
We'll do it next week.
Next week sounds good.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Round 3. But this has been another episode of the Super BS Gamescast, a podcast about video games. Mostly, we did not make any acolyte jokes tonight, so the trend is broken. Yes, 50,000 signatures.
Oh, we did it.
All right. You guys have any closing thoughts before we peace out?
No,
Amen.
just thankful that we got a chance to talk video games, and I'm looking forward to sharing even more gaming memories next week.
Yeah, it'll be awesome. I'll talk to you later. See you,
All right.
dudes.
Peace.
Peace.
Super BS.